No, I'm joking. Is it a strategist, so a thought partner? So we're a tiny agency, and I used to work at an agency and ran a team of 30 designers, and it was awesome because you'd have people in the room and you go, hey, I had this idea, what do you think of that idea? For my tiny little agency, AI has played a big role in kind of like making us bigger than what we are. We can take on projects that are bigger than what we should be able to take on, and we have this kind of like strategy idea of a ChatGPT. So we make up bespoke ChatGPT for every project, and we fill it with their own research, and then we use it as a team to ask it questions, to put in things, so it becomes a part of our team. And then an assistant cut out drudge work. So if we do user testing and it's videoed, we can use AI just to pull out things that we need, we can transcribe things. That used to be a time constraint, that was the budget thing. So like using AI in all the different processes is a benefit. I love putting this slide in when we talk about AI, right? So, does anybody know who painted this painting? Monet. So, Monet was born in the same decade of a very important technology that was brought out, and it was the camera. And before the camera, painters were mostly there to replicate what they saw in the world. And then the camera came along, and guess what? Everybody was like, oh, we don't need painters anymore because we've got this amazing invention. But what it ended up doing was giving painters a freedom to do something differently. And that's what Impressionists came from, and then Picasso, etc., etc. So optimistically, and I'm an optimistic person, I like to think of AI as now a moment where we can start to solve other creative problems, because some of the other things that we used to do are there. So I always just have that in mind. I know there's a lot of doomsday stuff around AI and everything, but I like this analogy sometimes where you kind of think about something that happened and it was over 130 years ago, and look at where we are now with painting and art. Live demo. This is my daughter. I could easily just spend the rest of the talk showing you pictures. But the live scenario actually came about from about 8 months ago. We were looking for schools for her to go to. She just went to school last week or 2 weeks ago, and the experience of looking at a school in Montreal, I live in Montreal, was quite hard, and it's quite like I had not got an understanding of that school. So the scenario we've got is we have been hired to redesign a website for a primary school. They really want to increase their applications for grade 1 for parents that have a new child that is going to school. So this is our kind of like brief, if you will. The tools we're going to use are ChatGPT for our strategist and helping us do first draft stuff, a tool called Reloom AI Site Builder, and then Figma and Webflow. I'm actually not going to go into Figma because I don't have enough time, but Webflow is a no-code technology. And then we won't demo Zoom and Otter, but that's the two tools we use to transcribe our testing and make it actionable. So here's our starting prompt. This is where it goes to a demo, so it could all go horribly wrong. So we're working with a primary school in Montreal to redesign their website, increase applications for grade 1. Our goal is to create a landing page that speaks directly to new parents who are sending out their first child to school. What are some key elements and features that we should focus on in the landing page and make it engaging, and inquiries for prospect parents. So if I go over to ChatGPT, I don't have time to go into this, but I have a pretty, and I can give you a link to this, it's actually open source, a pretty insane starting prompt that is more about, less about one agent that you're asking to do something, and it's called multi-agent. So you're basically asking a conductor of agents to do the work for you. So you're kind of saying, okay, you need to help me with this project. You call on the right people at the right time whenever we're going through that project. And we also have a thing where we've devised a way that we can, the COR is something of reason, I can't even remember what that means. But it's basically trying to output what ChatGPT is doing in the background so that we can understand it better. It's really cool, right? And you'll see how it works differently, but it kind of helps you to use the tool better. So all that said, let's find our prompt. So here it is here. So we'll start with this, and in that prompt I call on a professor who is going to help us with the project. So we will see what. So this is what's happening in the background. That is kind of outputting what it's thinking. The latest version of ChatGPT actually brought this in, and this prompt doesn't work with the latest ChatGPT, so I need to kind of find that. But you'll see here it's kind of like brainstorming ideas. Okay, we need to have an emotional connection, like warm, welcoming messages, clear value proposition, strong call to actions. So the idea is what we would do here is so we would start to take that and devise, you know, like user flows or a sitemap or actual wireframes. So then we would take this and we would go through a few iterations of it, break it in. Then we go over to a tool called Reloom. So Reloom started out as a Webflow design system, basically. Loads of components, and it was a component in Webflow and a component in Figma, so it was really easy to build websites. And then they came out with this tool called the Site Builder. So if I click on a new project, and I wanted to do this without, oh, here's one I've started earlier, so we've started a new project. If we just describe what we're working on, really simple, and then we generate a sitemap. So you see here, it kind of goes in, and you go home. Okay, it's going to give us a hero. It's going to give us feature list, benefits, how it works section. And then what we would do at this stage is like you click on here, and you can change the component, or you can kind of move it around. We would go back to what we've done in ChatGPT and start to like iterate on this, and to find the right kind of like sections that are going to go on the page. For the benefits of speed and time, I'm just going to leave it with what they've generated. And then it kind of suggests other pages, so you can kind of generate those pages as well. All of these are editable as you go in, and you can change it. The next stage, once you're happy with this sitemap, and you're kind of happy with the structure of the pages and what's going to be on the page, you click over to the wireframes, and it starts to create the wireframes for you from their 3,000 components, and then layers in, you know, some content for you that's a basis there. So you can see here, like we've got a navigation. We can replace that navigation with something simpler. So you can see there that we're actually changing components there. We can go on here. We can change things to cards. We can update the wireframe here, and we can also look into changing the content there as well. So you could kind of say like, oh, make it shorter, let's say, and it will start to replace that as well. So this tool is like the next step that we go into, and we kind of create this wireframe or this prototype that we're kind of taking to test. And I think that's the emphasis here. We're not taking this to a client to get their feedback. We are building this to test with users, hence the getting rid of the UX theatre. Now, you can take this into Figma, and you can make it clickable, and you make a prototype, and we've done that in the past with user testing, but it's always a Figma prototype. There's always an element of doesn't feel like a website, doesn't feel exactly what that is. So that's where Webflow comes in. So if we go over to, if I just go over here, and I go to, let me just go to the Webflow library, and if I start by cloning a site, so this is just Reloom's starter site. So if I store this and I create it here, and I go Montreal School website, and I create the site. And it's slow, so I can take a glass of water. It's really slow. Is anybody familiar with Webflow, by the way? Yeah. So then I'm in Webflow, and what we have here is main wrapper. So we can just like delete this, and then I can go here, and they've got a Reloom app here that you just add to the project, install on this site, and then what that does is connect basically to what you just saw me create and the Reloom tab. Obviously there's like a lot of iteration that goes on. You change components, you change things, there's loads of cool animated things. And then you click here and you can add the pages. And you'll see that it's actually adding all the pages. But if we go back to the home page, I'll just wait until it imports them. Come on. Okay, so now if we kind of go to here, you'll see that we've got like a home page. And this is all text that we can change inside Webflow. And if I publish this here, we have a live prototype ready to test in users' hands. So it's kind of like the way that we work with this is like this doesn't go to a client or anything until we've iterated 10 times on this and talked to users. What we would then do is we'd kind of take this and we go, okay, this is our URL and anybody can visit this. It kind of works on mobile, it's all responsive. So you've got a fully working bug-free prototype to take. You can add colours and all that if you're testing design, if that's what it was. Then I would go back to ChatGPT and I'd say, okay, we've created our, in fact I think I have this saved. Okay, now act as a user, create a testing plan to test the prototype that we've created, and you'd kind of ask that to then come up with your test plan, and then you can iterate on that, and you can take that to the test with you and test it with your users. So all of that said, I hope this kind of shows that the ability to get prototypes in people's hands means that we should not be never doing research, because it's not a blocker for budget or time, and it really if you can find out things at this stage, like if parents not interested in a testimonial from a teacher, then that's something that you can take throughout the project. Any questions?
So the output is now HTML and you have a prototype. You could give this off to a developer, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends, some people might just launch inside Webflow and then you've got your website there. But it could be a developer handoff as well. But I think the way that I kind of want people to think about this can be scrappy. Like 10 minutes and I just created 5 pages that you can test content, you can test hierarchy, you can start to bring images into it. If this has to be built on a big CMS system and all that, that's fine. And we're not saying use this code or anything, but it's about making this part of the design process and not just getting in Figma and designing beautiful pictures of websites and then not knowing if they're actually going to work or not. Yes?
This is great. I just wanted to clarify the gray tool that you were using before, that was the site builder?
This one?
And then you went into Webflow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's the key as well. Is like, not like there's a great quote where people's like, AI isn't products. Like you don't have an AI product. You have features that are enhanced with AI. So this product here, we already used this for the component library because it was a really fast way of kind of creating websites with 3,000 components that they had created in Figma and Webflow. Then they added this project builder, which was just like, okay, this is cool. But there might be other things out there as well, and I think that's the key as well. Don't get caught up in one tool does it all. I think it's like, if I need to go to ChatGPT for this, I'll do that. If I need to go there for that, I'll do that. And it's kind of like the same way as you have different team members in your team. They're all good at different things. So, and that is where you kind of like experiment a lot and you kind of like try out these things, and that's a never-ending like thing at the moment because something comes out like every two days. It's like jaw-dropping.
Are these tools you pay for, or?
Yeah, it's about $50 a month or something. One of the things that they're bringing in here is the next The next layer of this is they're going to bring in a style guide, so you can kind of add a brand to the wireframes at this stage, which will be interesting to see how it is, because there's still a process where, okay, we're happy with this wireframe, the structure on the page is good, the content's good, it's resonating with users. What does it look like now? So you kind of do take it into Figma, design it, and then you either update the ones that are generated, or you take it to a different platform and build it in a different technology.
Are you using these same tools for your metrics when you're doing the user testing, or what kind of metrics are you looking at?
Well, no, not really within that. User testing, depending on what you're trying to test, like you could be, if it's unmoderated testing, you can do things like, there's some tools out there where you can do task completion time, you can do like how quickly it found things. But at this stage, we're mostly doing moderated testing, so it's myself or a researcher that's saying, okay, I'm going to show you a picture, I'm going to show you a website, it's a wireframe, so there's no colours, it's for a primary school. What would you expect to be on there? So it's more qualitative research at that stage. Quantitative research can come later on in the process when you're happy with it and you go, okay, we believe that this is the best way to get someone to sign up, maybe test 2 or 3 of them there. That's that whole other kind of way of testing things.
So what are the level of complexities of website design that you look for testing in these kind of wireframes? Because a lot of that data also comes by qualitative testing of users, getting to know them, that what are they expecting. So at what level the difference comes by showing them abstract wireframes?
Well, I think for abstract wireframes, you can start to see hierarchy of content and kind of get an understanding of, is it resonating? It can be, finalized content, navigation. If it was a large site, we built a large site like this for a travel company. We're like, okay, you're heading to Paris. We're going to land on the homepage. Click around, talk about how you're getting there, and we want you to find recommendations for Paris. So do they go for destinations, or do they go for things that they like? So it's about learning the way that people navigate as well. Yes.
So I may have missed it, but what's your perspective on having AI be the user tester?
Like with synthesis, there's a lot of talk just now about training models on syntactic data. And I've seen some tools out there that you can kind of create user personas in a sense. But I do feel like that is probably a step too far in the sense of like getting design feedback, because there's a lot of nuance in design, there's a lot of different mental models that people have and ways in which people navigate. So I think you always, going back to the whole theatre thing, like you have to make users and customers part of the process, or you're kind of missing the point. Anybody sending a child to Montreal for a school, they can come to me for recommendations. Thanks everyone.